I thought I'd take a minute and show you all how we monitor and use our power here on our off-grid system. So we have this trimetric meter mounted in the house. There's another one in the powerhouse, but the benefit of having a secondary one here inside is that I don't have to go all the way outside to the powerhouse to see what the system is doing, which is great. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, and so on and so forth. So this tells us, we have a 48 volt system, and this tells us how many volts are currently coming into the system. I can also make it tell me how many amps are coming into the system currently. And volts times amps equals watts. And our charge controller, which is out in the powerhouse, automatically maximizes the power storage that we get from our solar panels. When this number drops down to about 53.5, that equates to a float charge, which means our system is full and all of that. But what I do use this for, and I do this usually first thing in the morning and first thing at night, if I press that button, this tells me how many amp hours we're at, which means right now we are 42.5 amp hours from full. And so our system is not fully at capacity, but we have plenty of power. The rest of these are not very useful readings for the way this one is programmed. All right, so 56.5, we max out at about 56.9 or 57. And that's, again, how our system is programmed. Yours might be different. And it's a 48 volt system. So really 48 is the absolute lowest reading that we ever want to see. And I never want to see that, to be honest with you, because we have lead acid batteries and it's not good for them to go that low frequently. So typically, if our numbers here are reading on our volts 48.5, somewhere in that range, I will go out and start the generator for a little while because it's better for the system to run a bit higher. We have a safety feature or fail-safe mechanism on our system that it will actually shut off our power when that voltmeter gets down to 47.3. Now that's way too low. You don't ever want to do that. I had to learn a little bit about what that meant for us through trial and error. And what I discovered is, as long as this meter is reading at least 50.0 at about 8 o'clock at night, we will be fine overnight. And we won't go below that 48 volts. Before it has time to recover in the morning. Now, with sun exposure being a seasonal thing, with the rotation of the earth and whatnot, that does change over the course of a year. So you just kind of have to figure out what the safe zone is for you for nighttime use and take it from there. So because we are currently quite healthy in the power realm, I'm about to start a load of laundry, and I can do that even though we're at a negative amp hour reading, because I know, given the time of day, it's still morning here, that we're going to reach fully charged status, which is 0 amp hours, without any kind of a problem. True confessions, I grew up off the grid with lead acid batteries. We had a 24 volt system, so, you know, much smaller scale than what we've got going on here. I did not know what amp hours were before we got this system, and it took me a long time to kind of wrap my head around that concept that 0 is full. And a helpful analogy that our solar installer and system designer told us was that it's kind of like a water tank. So if the water tank is full, that's 0, and anything over that, i.e. a positive reading, is waste, because if it were a water tank, that water would just be overflowing and you wouldn't be able to capture it. So hopefully that's helpful to you as well. But yeah, when I grew up with off-grid solar systems, we never worried about amp hours. But I like that feature because it helps me really kind of monitor how much usage we went through overnight since the sun went off the panels and so on and so forth, and make sure we're not depleting the batteries overly. So I've had this washing machine for a long time, and I really like it. I mean, I bought it maybe 15 years ago, and it just happens to be fairly energy efficient, which I really appreciate now that we live off grid. But you can see that this particular appliance has not done much to our power consumption because it is fairly energy efficient. So it's very important when you're shopping around for big appliances like this and you're living off grid, or even on the grid, honestly, if you don't want to pay thousands of dollars in electricity bills, to be mindful of the energy consumption, the wattage of your large appliances, even your small appliances and your lights, because those add up too. We're in California and it is summertime and it is hot. So I strongly recommend, if you're looking for a way to cool your living space, going with one of these big portable swamp coolers. Even though it looks big and bad, this thing only consumes 100 watts, which is next to nothing on a system this size. We love it, and it is able to keep our fairly large living space pretty cool. Clara likes to stand in front of it also. But I'm going to back up here and show you what is being cooled by this space. So we have high vaulted ceilings. We have a really kind of an open concept, this entryway over here. And even with our giant bank of windows across the front of the house, that little swamp cooler, large swamp cooler really, keeps things pretty comfortable in here. We recently had a stretch of 13 consecutive days that were like 105 to 112, and we were able to keep this space at about 85 degrees, which is a win when you're living off grid. I was talking with somebody recently and I said that, and he said, oh, I prefer it 78. And I was like, yeah, so do I. But a big part of being happy in living in an off-grid situation is managing your expectations. This puppy takes about 1,500 watts, so it is a big ticket item for us in terms of energy, which is why we're really, really careful when we use it. We have a 4,400 watt inverter, and so when you have multiple large appliances like that, and we also have a couple of chest freezers under the house, we have our refrigerator, you really want to be mindful of what you're doing at one time, because you never want your total wattage consumption to approach, in my view, that 4,400 watts, or you can fry your inverter. Not good. Now, I don't actually care how big your system is or what your components are. The overarching themes here are being really conscious of the appliances that you're buying and their wattage consumption, as well as when you're running things. So for example, I don't do laundry at night. I mean, I don't have a dryer, so it'd be kind of funny if I did laundry at night, but even if I had a dryer, I would not do laundry at night because it's not a wise use of our battery bank power at night when I could just do it during the day. We do not run that air conditioning unit for very long, and we certainly do not run it at night unless we're running the generator so William can sleep. So I hope this has been informative and helpful, and really there's no reason to feel like you have to shut all the lights off at night, right when the sun goes down, or do anything like that. We watch movies at night because our TV is a pretty energy conscious model. We just have to be careful.